grew, and it wasn't often, it was a part of United Health Group.
So they have labs across the board.
As far as I know.
Hi, Anishig. We are here.
$20 million they had to pay out as rent.
I watched it the trainings.
Oh, how do you?
And whenever there is a breach and it's not taken care of right away or something, I think there is like a big fee. Oh, ransom.
$20 million.
Ransom. So that pretty cool.
I'm surprised the FBI or.
I don't know the details of even how far, it's going, or who's involved. I'm sure all of that's being involved, but they're not really saying everything, I mean, it's kind of like, we're here to do this, what happened,
Large corporation.
Is it okay?
You're not gonna have to make trust
This is the first time, I mean, I've been close, like, our company has been kind of, we bought other companies, they had that and all, and
Yeah.
like 30-degree history with them, it's the first
Yeah.
time. But it's been United Health Group, like nationwide.
Yeah. That's about right. That's about right.
And again, we don't mix.
Yes, good.
They said a lot of them also have the
You ready?
information. But then that's it.
Let me make sure.
It's working?
Let me get off the way.
No Tina Bryson? Over in child?
Yeah, make a
Maybe.
dog.
Oh, is that?
It is, yeah. That's all.
Oh yeah.
I think you can like her.
No?
Like her work. You like her work.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I like it.
The young mamas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because usually they have their meeting at 6 to 7, right?
Yeah.
So I was assuming
So
she'd be here.
I was hoping too.
The young mamas.
The moms.
I think 4 of them said they're coming,
Oh, okay.
but they always come late to our.
Oh, so maybe it's just the way it is anyways.
To one of your meetings, just because you know what it is? I finish work at 5. What am I going to do till 7? And I'm like, why don't I just come sometimes?
You should.
Angelantic sometimes comes. Angela.
Yeah, I'll be like the wise woman, who's just listening.
And just
to
get-
it's
future grandparents.
There you go.
Next Friday we're meeting. We're finishing our book.
It's okay, it doesn't matter. I don't have to necessarily follow.
Come anytime.
Just
Have coffee.
Because then I get really tired. I go, that's it, I'm going home.
That-
I just can't hang around for 2 hours.
Yes.
I'm just already long day.
Yes. Yeah. I know that feeling.
I mean, even when Melina was doing her, I was saying at 7, I was like, what am I gonna do? Go to the store, go to dinner
You have
with
to
someone.
hang out around here.
Because going
Yeah, so it was just like, go eat.
going home is such a commitment. It was like
I know that.
all the way to Burbank.
No, not from Burbank. I'm from Arcadia.
No, if you were to go home.
No, but to go.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
get home. I'm gonna get to a PJ's meeting.
Yep.
I'm not getting out.
Yep.
Who is that?
Okay, why don't we get started? So today's workshop is one of many. I have actually multiple sections to this, but we're doing one of them, and it's more of the neurological discussion that I want to present. Because I feel like there's multiple ways to be able to talk about it. There's multiple ways to be able to discuss it. But starting off with more of a physiological explanation and then building on that felt like foundationally it makes the most sense. If you want to deal with your children, you want to talk with your children, knowing what's going on the inside is a good first step. So what is going on as their brain develops, as their body develops, and they start to think and they start to interact and they start to figure out they're figuring out what's going on inside of them. They're trying to understand it. It's a good first step. So there's multiple steps, and I'll go over them each one. Next slide. I was hoping there are people that have never seen me before, so I had an introduction slide, but we can skip over this one. So you know me very well by now. I do have a QR code if you haven't signed up for my blog. I do a blog, shameless plug. You can subscribe to that if you want to, trying to just marry the topics of psychology and theology together. The way I described it, I'm trying to provide psychology from an approachable perspective that people can understand it and they can read it and they can know what's going on. And the theology from a subtle perspective, so they're not turned off by it, so they're not pushed away from it, because one of the last things people want is to be able to see something that's just tainted with religion and these biased ideas. So those are weaved in a way I feel like is a really good, effective way to be able to provide it. So that's my blog. And then just a quick description, of course, our workshops. We're trying to reach people in the community. How can we get the community to be able to understand what we're talking about and what we're doing in a beneficial way? So, of course, thank you, Vivian, for last month's with nutrition. The month before, Alec, you'll take as proxy. Thank yous. So we're just going to keep on getting ideas and doing whatever we can. So parenting one, I thought, would be also beneficial for everybody involved as well. So, Parenting 101, what can we really do? We're not really talking about the first 3 months of the child. First 3 months, there's a book I read that does a really good job of explaining it. The first 3 months of the child is usually should be considered as the fourth trimester of the fetal development. So that really helped me actually with when I had my children. So more anecdotally, but it did provide a lot of interesting perspective. So Parenting 101 is where we're at. We're doing a neurological approach, and the 5 different sections that I have divided. We also have one on proper discipline, just what disciplinary tools that are used, what techniques that are explained. I'll explain the neurological one, obviously, as we get closer. But then just describing the discipline and the way that we should be interacting with the child. I have a section called 10 Commandments of Parenting. So these are things, I've only been there for less than a year at my site, of course, where I work. I work with primarily children, therapy with majority children, but then I work a lot with the parents too. And I work with, my 2 supervisors are people that have over 20 years of experience combined. They were trained by a person who has almost 60 years of experience, by himself working with children. So there's a lot of experience that's flowing in the office. And there's nuggets that get passed around very frequently between all of us of just things to remember and advice that's being given. So I've put them together into kind of a list of 10 that we should keep in mind of what the best things to remember for parenting. Our Spirited Children, it's a title of a book that I've gotten it from. This one is for those parents who have children with ADHD. They are with autism, OCD, anxiety, depression, any of the disorderly thinking that we have. So that one is a separate discussion because these children are neurotypically different than the other children. So how does a parent work with a child with autism? What do you do? How does discipline change? How do your interactions change? How do you do it with ADHD? So that's the author. I like the way they call it. They call those children spirited. So that's that section. And then screen time. Screen time is an epidemic and it's a miracle, both at the same time. So it's one of those things where we have a lot of research coming forward that shows the detriments of it, and yet it's slowly becoming something that we have daily and hourly and almost a requirement for certain jobs and certain things to do. Children come home from elementary school with Chromebooks. It's like it's inevitable. They have to go online to check their homework. Like, screen time is an inevitability. So what is research saying? How are we supposed to handle it? What are we supposed to do? So that's another section that I have. But today's we're doing parenting on neurological. So today's will be on the neurology of a child. What is going on in the brain? How is it developing? What changes are being made within that child's brain so that as they're starting to interact with the world around them, what are they able to do and how are they able to handle those situations and those circumstances? What are they seeing? So that's why I titled it Peering into the Mind. The idea is that we get to a better sense of what the child is going through so that then we can adjust accordingly what we're going to do. So what are we doing? We're talking about development expectations in a child's life. I'm not setting milestones. I don't know if you've ever gone through like an intro to psych class of just describing the milestones that are reached. Milestones are just like a figure of, just an idea that gets put out there. There's these wide ranges that are given of anywhere between these years is appropriate for, that's a phrase I use frequently with parents. It's developmentally appropriate, right? The parent always comes in, is it weird if my kid does X, Y, Z? I'm like, it's developmentally appropriate. That is expected of your child. My child does this, this, this. It's developmentally appropriate. So just tying that in is usually very helpful for them. So we're talking about it from three different perspectives. We're connecting the left and the right brain. We're connecting the bottom part of your brain and the top part of your brain. And then we're connecting memory encoding, how memories work. So those are the three things we'll be talking about. Then I'll be giving you developmentally appropriate techniques, right? Based on that development, how should we interact with our child? Why? Why does that interaction help in that situation? And then we leave it open for some questions that can come up, and you can leave it and we can have a discussion after that. Josh, here you go. So the books that I'll be referring to, Dr. Siegel and Dr. Bryson. We have a psychiatrist and a psychologist that got together to write. And the reason, again, back to the workshop mentality that we have at Packin, this is supposed to be helpful information that you as a parent or as a person that's trying to share with other parents what's going on, that you're able to get information. I'm going to be giving you the most important pieces of information that I found through my research and my experiences and anecdotally, but then also through what the conversations have been about. But then, let's say you have more questions. Buy a $12 book and you can find those there. Very easy to read. You want a specific section that you see on the slides. It's about 8 to 10 pages of information. Very easy to follow, very easy to understand what they're trying to describe. So I highly recommend these books. Majority of the workshops are based on that. So I'll give you a book that you can digest further if you need it more. So that's what we're doing from mostly for this workshop and the next one when the time comes. So let me give a few pieces of information about the brain to kind of set the precedence of what goes on. So as the brain develops, there's a lot of changes that happen. Your brain, of course, is your command center. It is the central piece of your body. Everything functions because the brain's active. Now, there's a lot more nuance to the brain. The way it's being described, left and right, up and down, memories. There's a lot more to it. It's not that simple, and you're going to see it simplified. It's just so that we have a better understanding and we don't complicate things. We're not going to walk out of here as neurologists. We're going to walk out of here as humans, and just how does my anatomically relevant organ function within my body so I have a better understanding of how to deal with things when I go on and on in whatever I do. Plasticity of brain. When I talk about brain being plastic, what the description is that's being described is that it's changeable. It's moldable. It's actually changing with every interaction we have. Every single time you have an interaction, those neurons in your brain adjust. They change. They create new connections, and they create new ways to interact with the reality that they were experiencing. Now, there's positives to that, and there's negatives to that, right? That means that we can start to, positive is that we can start developing patterns. We can start learning. This is a way that you start memorizing. You start getting into habits, especially good ones. But then the negatives also. If you yell at your kid every single day for a few months, it's going to start impacting their child. It's going to change the brain function. They're going to start recognizing their parent as someone that yells at them. Or negativity can build into that as well. So paying attention to the way you interact over long periods of time is relevant for the brain. But the positive of that is that everything can be changed. Everything can be adjusted. Certain changes take longer. Right? I've been seeing some of my clients from the beginning since I started in September, and I've been seeing them till now. Those changes take time. It takes longer for some of them. I talk with some of the other ones that they've been going to therapy since they were teenagers, and now they're in their adulthood. It takes time. It just depends on what changes have been made in the brain and how long it's going to take for that experience to adjust. So our goal should be integration. Now, what am I saying when I talk about that? That word gets thrown around a lot. The goal of the parent is to teach a child what's happening around them and inside of them and how to bring it all together and to piece it together in a way that makes sense to them and for them to be able to have a better understanding of it. The academic definition I usually give for integration is to help a child integrate their neurological chemical experiences with the stimuli that trigger it. So, in other words, the simplest way to say it, to understand your emotions within reality. How do my emotions translate what I'm experiencing in the world around me? That's the goal. That's what a parent should do, because the kid is experiencing these things that they don't know how to describe. They don't know how to explain. So being able to come alongside them and teach them is a very effective way to do that. So first one is the right and the left brain. So this is, again, very simplified perspective that gets offered. The right brain is this big picture kind of Creative mind. I've heard a lot. It's like no, this is what I'm talking about. There's more nuance to it. No, if you're left-handed, it doesn't mean you're an artist. No, if you're right-handed, it doesn't mean you're a scientist. That's not the way it works. So there's more to it than that. It's not as simple as that. But creativity stuff usually lights up majority of your right brain. That's kind of the function that we see. Whereas more logic starts the left side of the brain. There's a really fascinating TED Talk of a neurologist who had a stroke. And she's explaining the stroke happened over a couple hours. So she was awake for the entire time. And she's describing, because she knows this inside and out, she's describing her senses that start shutting down when parts of her brain start shutting down. It's a really fascinating TED Talk, but it really puts into perspective of how important parts of the brain are in certain situations of what's going on. So she describes one situation where the left side it was happening on the left side of her body. So the left side shut down, and she was describing like it was as if the rooms of the walls of the room had just disappeared, and I could just see the world around. Everything was wide open, and there was nothing, no borders around me, which is all left brain oriented. And she's like, it felt like hours had passed by, but I looked at the time; it was only about 2 minutes. Sense of time is on that left side. So it's a very fascinating thing. There's a lot of nuance to it, but that's a really good way to describe it. One of the descriptions I really like that it uses, left brain it cares about the letter of the law. The right brain cares about the spirit of the law. So letter of the law is, it doesn't matter why, this is what the rules are. So I'm following it. That's the left brain. The right brain is more open-minded. It says, well, I mean, we don't know, and we could figure out a way, and maybe we can start adjusting and thinking in different ways. And so that's kind of the division that we see within both of them. So how are they going to interact, and they're going to talk to each other? Well, this is where disorderly thinking starts to be considered, and where integration becomes important. If the right brain is fully active, left brain's shut down. In the sense that the child is using only part of their brain at a certain time. So studies have shown up until the age of 3, the left brain is the least developed part of their brain. The right brain is what's being developed. So they're really focused on that creativity, the big thinking, the big emotions. That's all right brain. Left brain starts to kick in at around the age of 3 to 4. You can tell this by the questions of why. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? What does that happen? What's that? Why does that happen? Why does the sun do this? And like that whyness is they're trying to fit in order into their reality of understanding. So that's when you can tell that they've entered into that left brain development. So that's kind of a way to be able to see how the adjustment works for the kid. Now the goal is, what are we going to be teaching our children? There's going to be moments in their development, in their time, in their interactions, that it's really frustrating, right? One of the things that Garna and I usually describe of trying to just get through the day with our kid is just to survive. We just need to survive until 7 o'clock so we can put them to bed, and then we can be able to have the rest of the night off. Survive. Well, the goal is, in this situation, each moment that you have with your child, each moment that you have with a kid is an opportunity to survive, yes, but it's also an opportunity to thrive. You can ask yourself, what can I teach my child in this moment? What can I do in this idea? How can I interact with them, not just to get by, but to elicit knowledge and information about whatever experience that they're having. So let's talk about a few ideas, a few techniques that come up. So imagine with me your children doing similar things to this. I'm going to provide all of the examples with stories of what children go through. Hopefully that's a helpful way for you. That was helpful for me to learn. But just to kind of put it into perspective of, here's a child going through whatever is going through, and here's how you can interact with the child. Okay, so this technique is called connect and redirect. So connect and redirect. So child, imagine with me, you've put your 8-year-old to bed. It's been about 30 minutes, and then you hear footsteps. They got out of bed. They're coming towards you, and they come to the mom or dad, and with a loud voice, the child proclaims, "You never leave notes for me in the middle of the night." And the mom is like, I didn't know I needed to. This is new information for me. And the child continues. You never do anything nice for me. My birthday is 10 months away. I hate homework. I mean, it's an illogical conversation, right? Where is this coming from? There's no clarity to why they're doing what they're doing. And yet, it's familiar, right? This emotional outburst without logic. The way to consider something like this, first of all, don't take offense to it, because what's happening here? Right brain, fully active. Left brain, nowhere to be seen. Hostage. They're gone. There's no logic in the conversation. So you can do this. You can respond in the way that the comic shows, which is what the authors call it, to command and demand. I do not want to see you out of your bed until morning. Get back into bed and we'll talk about this later, right? That's a survival technique that parents use of just, I'm not dealing with this right now. You're getting yourself back into bed. Don't be ridiculous. We'll have a conversation about this in the morning. Or you can appeal to that right brain, right? What's happening in that right brain? Well, it's full emotions, no logic. So logic's not going to help. So instead, what's considered is to connect with them, connect with that emotional center, and then you can start redirecting back to the logic sense once the left brain starts showing up again, right? And so that's why this one described, oh man, it sounds like you're really frustrated. Yeah? Are you angry? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm angry. You don't leave me notes. I'm like, of course you would love to wake up to a note, right? Well, what if I leave you a note for tonight? How's that sound? Great. Okay, yeah. And just wait for that left brain to start waking up again and for logic to kick in. And now you can say, well, homework is definitely an important thing to talk about, but it's pretty late. Do you want to talk about that in the morning? Okay, let's talk about that in the morning. How about that? And then you can appeal to what their actual logic is trying to tell them. That no, it's the middle of the night. This is not the time to have this conversation. But emotionally, they're frustrated. So what are we doing right there? What are you teaching the child right there? You're teaching the child that it's okay to have these emotions. Whatever emotion you have, I'm recognizing it. You naming it also helps them because now they're starting to put the dots together. Oh, when I feel this way, I'm feeling angry. This is anger. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to verbalize anger in this way, but we need to land back on logic. Well, let's figure out what we're trying to do here and what's trying to go on. So this one, connect and redirect. Next one, very similar. This one is imagine your child falling and hurting their knee, right? Falling and getting hurt. Something happens to themselves. They get hurt. They come over, and very common. Oh, that's okay. No. There's no need to cry. Let me take a look at it. It's not that big of a deal. You're okay. You're tough, right? Right? No need to cry. What is this called? Dismiss and deny. You're basically telling the child whatever experiences you're having right now are irrelevant for whatever this experience is. Whatever emotion you're feeling is unnecessary. It is out of proportion for the experience that you just had. Whereas for the child, this might be one of the first times they've ever seen blood. This is the first time they may have felt pain in this way, or pain they did not want to happen, or they were doing something and now they lost it. They were chasing something, it's gone, and now injury on top of that. So for them, this is a big deal. For us, this is one of many. And what we're trying to teach them is not to catastrophize. That's a good lesson to teach, but how do we teach it? Not by this. So don't do dismiss and deny. Instead, name it to tame it is what it's called. Describe it. Explain what happened. Actually walk through it with them. Oof, that looks like it hurts. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it hurts. I fell. What happened? What were you doing? Were you playing with a toy? What happened when what did your dolly think when you fell? Did she get upset? Was she sad for you? Yeah, I'm sure. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, there's a big owie. Do you need a Band-Aid? Let's cover it up. Let's wash it. Whatever it is to be able to reconstruct the story so that they can talk about it and connect the dots within what's going on so that then they understand that their experience that they had, yeah, it's just a scraped knee. It's not a big deal. And then going forward, they'll know that because this is how you work through trauma. For them, that's traumatic. But for you, we understand that it's not a big deal. There's a stand-up comedian that I always use, Samuel, you know this, uses a very good example of this. So let me put that clip on. I don't know how the audio is going to work. since it's VGA. So hopefully you can hear it from my computer. But let me show you this one. Let's see if this will work.
Right in the park, we saw another family. They had like a 5-year-old boy holding a helium balloon. He accidentally let go of his balloon. The boy started crying. And his parents were like, "Why are you crying? It's a balloon. We'll get you another one." I'm like, "Japers, folks." Sometimes I don't think adults try hard enough, to understand what kids are going through. If you wanted to relate to what it's going through, imagine if you took your wallet out and just started floating away. Why are you acting like that? It's a wallet. We'll get you another one. I want one!
There you go. Okay. So yeah. So the idea is there that we're going to have those times when, for us, we've gone through that before. We've experienced... Oh, that's how you do that. Okay, anyways, whatever. Now I know. So we've experienced that before. We've gone through that. But for a child, they've never experienced that before. If it's their first time, for them, that right brain, that big picture of this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is the most painful thing that's ever happened to me. For us to be able to get at that level and say, yeah, it really is. For now, you'll be able to deal with it. You'll be okay. You're not using those words, but what you're doing, you're showing them how to do it. Here's how you incorporate that right brain of big thinking with logic. Okay, here's the last one with for the right left brain. Same idea. Doggy ripped up the picture. Actually, we had a very similar situation to this. Yuffie, we promised Yuffie we'd not talk about it. But same thing happened with Yuffie, with something she had painted and it got ruined. So, painted something, the dog ruined it, and of course the dad, the classic dismiss and deny, that's okay, you'll paint another one. Well, yeah, would you say that if it was your $10,000 painting you had bought? No, of course you're not going to say that. But for the kid, that's what's happening. They're thinking big picture. I spent hours on this and the dog ruined it. This was what I brought home. I wanted to give it to. It's so important to me, and it got ruined. So how do we teach them to be able to incorporate that? Well, in this case, feelings coming and going. I know you're going to feel a certain way, and it's going to be really frustrating because you're going to be directing it at your dog. I hate that dog. That dog ruined my picture, right? But those feelings wash away because what happened yesterday when you were thinking about your dog? How did it feel then? Oh, I loved my dog. Right? And isn't that weird how sometimes you feel like you love them, sometimes you feel like you want to really just do something to them, and that's normal. Feelings come and they go. So that right brain, that big picture, big emotions, to balance it out with that left logic, sometimes it takes time, but you have to appeal to it first. You have to just take your time because it just takes a little bit more. By the way, what I'm talking about is seconds extra on your interaction with your child. We're talking about 15 to 20 seconds more conversation for a kid to be able to start thinking in a big picture, whole brain activating so that they can get a better understanding of how to handle it in the future. Okay? So that's left, right. Let me go over bottom, top. So this one, the biggest description is the kind of the instinctual and the experience, the learned. And this is where we get that. And if you take a look at brains and just the development of brains throughout all the species that we have, that bottom half of the brain, which part of it is called the cerebellum. Cerebellum is, of course, Latin for little brain. It looks like a brain. So it takes care of all the stuff that we need to live. So that bottom part of the brain is important. You want to breathe, you want to blink, you want to pump blood through your system, you want all your organs to work properly, you want your nervous system to be functioning. That's the bottom half of the brain. So you can imagine, in a child, that's what develops first, obviously. Their body's functioning properly. So that bottom part. Now, what's part of that bottom part? The limbic system. What's the limbic system? Emotions. So the part of the brain that's developing first in their childhood is their emotional system. How they react to things. Not the top of the brain, which is how to process things. How do I think through this? How do I logically think about the situation? By the way, that part of the brain, it takes, some researchers say, almost 3 decades to fully develop. which is why there's a lot of teenagers that make boneheaded decisions up until their 20s. It's normal because the part of the brain that's for thinking and making decisions develops way later. The emotions, though, that kicks in a lot faster. So how can we incorporate this into functioning? Well, one of the best ways that I like to describe this is just the difference between a temper tantrum and a meltdown. Anyone know the difference between temper tantrum, meltdown? Thinking about what happens. Maybe if you have a child and you can remember them having a temper tantrum in the middle of the middle of the shuga, and they're freaking out. You're like, thrashing, screaming, yelling. It looks in multiple different ways. You get embarrassed. You don't know what to do. You're in the middle. You're shopping. You can't take them outside, right? It's a big deal. It's very traumatic for a lot of parents, let alone for the kid. But the difference between them is which part of the brain is activating, the bottom or the top. The top is logical. They're thinking. What are they doing? If I cry, I'll get what I want. That is thinking. The kid knows. The kid's trained, right? I joke with parents that asking them, are you training the kid or is the kid training you in that situation? Because usually what happens, the kid knows that if I cry a certain way, my mom's going to go running and give me whatever I want, right? They've learned temper tantrum. They do it intentionally. Top brain. Bottom brain is emotion. It's a meltdown. They're not really controlling it. They don't really know. There's no logic behind it. Their emotions have gotten so high, they don't know how to handle those emotions, so they let out the only carnal way that they know how to, which is screaming, thrashing, yelling, being frustrated in different ways. So that's kind of that big difference between the bottom and top. So let's talk about a few techniques here. Engage, don't enrage is the one for this one. Integrating that top and bottom, how do we incorporate that? Let's look at a lot of the similar stuff, but you can tell there's slight differences for this one. Your daughter had said that she wanted something. You had said, nope, we're not going to buy that today. You get in the car and off you go. Daughter says, I hate you, mommy. Oh, ouch, right? That hurts so much. Of course, what's the common response that we do? Well, we match their emotional frustration with our own. Don't you dare say something like that to me again. That is not the way you talk to your mother. You do not use that kind of language, right? Whatever. Fill in the blanks, right? Now you can do that. That's fine. That's understandable. And I know as parents, we may feel the pull to want to do that because we just got insulted by our child. I feed you. I think of the Cosby thing of just like, I brought you into the world, right? So the idea there is really, really just to push back and say, no, don't you dare do that. But again, what's active in them? They might be so frustrated that they're going to be taking it out on you. Anyone here ever have a long day at work? And you go to the grocery store, you go anywhere, and someone triggers you. Right? That's normal. So imagine your kid. Your kid is not able to process what's going on. They can't tell you, well, mother, I am frustrated with the way you treated me. I am angry with how you prevented me from doing what I wanted to do. Like that doesn't exist within what the child does. So appeal to their understanding that it's called the reptilian brain, that bottom part of the brain. That reptilian brain is active. They are in defense mode. They are trying their best to protect themselves. And what they're trying to do is by attacking whatever they feel like is attacking them, which is right now, parent. I hate you, mommy. Wow, you sound really angry. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm really angry with you. Is it because of that necklace that I didn't let you buy? Yes, it is because of that necklace I didn't buy. I'm really angry. I hate you, mommy. Well, in this case, for the one that describes here, that necklace wasn't actually for sale. We couldn't even buy it if we wanted to. What if we know you're feeling upset, but what if we come up with some ideas? What if we problem solve, maybe making our own necklace or going to a new store or going somewhere else to be able to talk about it? You're not bribing them. You're trying to appeal to that emotional outburst that happens to be able to get them into a place that they can start thinking with that top brain. Let's talk about this in a logical way. And then, of course, depending on the child, it takes time. It adds seconds to your conversation with them. But just to look past that they're not offending you, your child's not attacking you, they are responding, they are reacting, and it's completely normal for them to be able to do that in that way. Yeah.
Okay, what's the estimated we should be on alert for this. So, or like after the first, the fourth trimester, like you said.
Yeah.
Should we be approaching anything they do with, less words and more engaging how they are?
They say as early as the 5th month, you can start sleep training a child. That means at 5 months of age, they're already thinking and they're reacting and they've recognized that, oh, this person goes running when I start to cry. So as young as 5 months old and as old as, we use these techniques with adults, technically. There's more nuance to it, but it goes. So I would say down to 5 months up until they've moved out and they're doing their own thing.
So for example, if they're sleeping, right, they're 4 or 5 months old and they start doing the crying to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the other side where you just let them kind of cry it out and go to sleep.
Right, yeah.
How would you fit that into something that young?
Sure. So this requires conversation, right? Efina, my daughter, is 2.5. I can't really do this. She's not really, she can partially, but she's not really having a full-blown conversation. Yuffie is 4. I can do this. So it just depends. It's going to depend on what's going on. You can still do emotions. I still sit down with Efina. If she's crying about something, I'll take her, I'll hold her, be like, ooh, that looked like it hurt. Or, oh, it sounds like you're upset. I still do that part, but there's not really that back and forth that you're kind of describing. So it changes a little bit, but it doesn't change too much because you're still trying to teach them that you're feeling anger. This is angry. This is what's going on when you didn't get something that you wanted. And it's okay to be able to do that. And hold them and just sit with them a little bit. And again, it's about like 30 seconds more that you're just sitting with them and holding them and just talking them through it. And then once they finally calm down, and it's like, Effie, do you want to go do this? Do you want to do this? Let's try to piece it together. Great question though, yeah.
I'm assuming you would agree that there's like error in figuring out what a difference between meltdown and ploy.
Yeah.
By the kid, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Because sometimes the only experience I have are my nephews.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is fully a ploy.
Yes.
They've learned this.
Yeah.
And other times I'm like, I just can't tell.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you really feeling this?
Right. So
Yeah.
another.
I'm the parent, so I don't have as much information.
Right, you're not with them 24/7 to be like, I know the difference between that cry and this cry. So another example, Effina, I took her to a grocery store. Anyone been to Amazon Fresh? I love Amazon Fresh. It's like my favorite store. But when you go in, they have a fruit cart for your kids. So you can go and you pick a fruit for them. So they go in and Effina, Yuffie love it. They pick apple or an orange or a banana. So Effina walked in. She wanted the banana. She almost always gets the banana. So he got the banana, started eating it, and she knows, like one of my biggest frustrations is when she wastes food. So she's eating her banana, and then just like a few bites into it, she's like, Chumuser, I don't want the banana. I'm like, okay, just put it right there. There's like on the grocery carts, there's a little table for them that they can just set food, they can set toys, like it's like very convenient for kids. And she's like, I don't want the banana. She's like, and I'm not available. I'm putting like vegetables in a bag, like I can't do anything. She throws the banana on the floor. And then I spank her hand. She knows, like, you don't waste food. That was a spanking moment. We'll talk about spanking in the discipline portion. So I thought it was temper tantrum. Later, I find out she had a few sores in her mouth. She was in pain. She didn't know how to handle the pain. So she was like, I can't eat this. So I was like, I can't do it. I can't handle this. And that's a situation where it's like, if I knew that, if I recognized that, it would be a different conversation. I'm not going to tell her, we'll just put it right there. I was like, ooh, of course it hurts. Yeah, of course it was like multiple too. I was like, of course it hurts to take a bite and there's sores. And so it's a very different conversation. I was wrong in that moment. And it's just a matter of timing and figuring it out and knowing what's going on with your child. Even Garnia didn't know at the time. We both found out at that moment, a few hours later. It's like, oh man, she's suffering. But great question. Yeah, lots of trial there. Lots of trial with how we do it. That's why we have years with our kids. And that's why the plasticity of the brain matters. We're going to make mistakes. It's all good. Pretty important therapist that I've read for stuff like this talks about being a good enough parent. Just good enough. You don't have to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. Being good enough. Is your child surviving? Is your child learning? Is your child becoming a great version of themselves? Great. That's all. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be good enough. Okay, let's keep going. Exercising the upstairs brain. So again, upstairs brain is what? The top of the brain is for thinking, decision making, right? Your kid finds something and they bring it and they're like, I want to keep this. And it's like, you found it. What is the inclination of the parent? Put it back where you got. Oh yeah. It's dirty. Don't put it in your mouth. Put it back where you got it. It's not ours. But let them come to that decision. Let them figure that out themselves. And let them make a decision and you go along with it so they feel like that what the decision entails. Yes, here we go. Yeah. So that's a really important aspect to be able to allow them. The brain, it's not a muscle. The brain's not a muscle. It's neural cells. But just like a muscle, the brain needs to be, right? I joked with somebody earlier. I'm like, you can hear her before you see her. That's how FNO works. No, she's fine now. Yeah. So the idea there, you exercise that brain, you keep training it, you work on it. The more decisions you make, the better your decisions will get. Start young with the kid. Start in situations that is very contained. Allow them to come up with their own decisions and figure it out on the Sheikh Mazat serum, and be able to allow that to be a learning experience for them. Okay, another dismiss and deny. Mom, Mark called me stupid. Oh, what did you do? Well, nothing. He was just talking and he said it, right? And how common is that? I was just there. I was just sitting there and they came and just hit me, right? Really? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, right. I don't know about that. That's okay. Just stay away from each other and it sounds like both of you are upset. Which could be 100% accurate. They both could have had a bad day. They both got on each other's nerves and it went one step too far. Could be very accurate. But how's a better way to be able to handle it? Well, this is another aspect that we start to think about. The empathy portion of the brain is also within that neocortex, the understanding of what another person is going through, what they're experiencing. So allow them to be able to process that. Think about what the person is going through. Why do you think he was upset to call you that? Yes, he shouldn't call you that, but why do you think he did? What was upsetting in his situation? Well, I made fun of the art that he was drawing. Oh, was he working on that really hard? Was that really important to him? Put your daughter, put your son in their shoes to be able to understand what's going on, to be able to then piece together that conflict.
Would that be wading in dangerous waters because you're like validating kind of that the brother said that word? Yes, correct. So that's why when I said that earlier with the like a kid that says, I hate you, mommy. You don't use that language. So you store that, but when do you talk to them? You don't talk to them when that left brain is gone. You don't talk to them when there's no logic, right? You talk to them when logic has actually started to form. So you take time to be able to allow for... So you understand that they can begin understanding what's going on. So yes, that is language that you want to be cognizant of. Oh, and by the way, after the conversation, we don't use that language, right? How else could we use that language? I talk about it during the disciplines. It's called do-over. A do-over is really helpful with kids of like, okay, how else could you have handled that situation? Well, I could have not yelled at them. Great. If you did yell at them, what could you have said? Maybe you could have said something else. Maybe you could have said it in a different way. So yeah, all that is part of parenting. All that's part of parenting. But what we're doing, the first step is just incorporating that integration. So we bring together all the aspects of the brain, all the aspects of emotion, so you can understand it within your reality. Good question. Okay, last one. Memory encoding. There's a few myths that I want to just go through with memories real quick. Memory, the first one, memory is like a filing cabinet. I want to remember what I did on January 14, 2022. There it is. And I got my memory. I figured out exactly what I did on that day. That's not how memory works. How does memory work? You walk in after work, and your wife is cooking something, your husband's cooking something, husbands cook too, right? They're cooking something, and you get the smell of garlic, and you remember back to when your mother used to make fasulya, and pilav, and miso, and that's what triggers. Memory is triggered with associations. So you go somewhere, you get a smell, I remember the Dodger dog that I had with the weird ketchup that I remember. And then when I was there, I was talking with my dad and they were doing this and this. And boop, yallah, and all this memory cluster starts to form, right? Memories are formed by sight. You see something, you remember, oh yeah, that's a site of where I used to do this with my friend. And so that's how memories work with association. So think about this for your child. Your child's not just going to remember. Don't you remember I told you this yesterday? No, I don't remember. I can't remember what you said yesterday. They're not going to say that. What are they going to say? They're going to maybe come up with something else. They're going to hide it. They're going to say, of course I remember, and try to pretend like they remember something. Association is the way it works. So I take the girls to grocery store. I take them to Amazon Prime, Amazon Fresh. If you go to Amazon Fresh, right to the left, they have what? A Krispy Kreme, right? They have a Krispy Kreme right inside the store, right next to the veggies. Yeah, you walk in, Krispy Kreme right there. So of course, the first time it opened, Yuffie and Effie, oh, donuts! And we're like, nope, no donuts. So what happened? That association kicked in. For 3 months, 4 months, however it was open, they never asked for donuts. They never did. It was set in stone. We would walk past the donut place and just keep following, getting the fruits and vegetables and leave. One day, what happened? An employee, they had those new grocery carts, the little ones for kids that they push. So one day, all 4 of us are there. All 4 of us have a grocery cart. We're all walking together. Employee was like, oh my gosh, your daughters are so cute. Here's a free donut. Every time we step foot, donut! Effina, especially. Effina now has taken it one step further with the association. I tell Effina, we're going to Shuga. And she's like, donut? Like, that's it. Any store is now a donut for her. Any store is a donut for her. Association. That's how memories work. It's not just this, like, you know exactly what you're remembering. It's, can you be reminded by it based on what's going on around you? That's why reminders are very helpful. A phone buzz, writing it down so you see it. Reminders are very helpful because we remember by association. Second myth, memory is like a photocopying machine. That you do whatever you experience, you take a snapshot of it exactly as you remember it. That's exactly as you remember it for years to come. That is not the way it works. In fact, research has shown when you create a memory, I don't know how they figured this out, that when you create a memory, there's a specific neural cluster of cells that stores that memory. And then when you recall that memory, maybe a year from then or a month from then, doesn't matter, it's a different neural cluster that will produce that memory. It's not even the same one. So whatever stores it, it gets moved or shifted. It's just a similar, so every time you remember, it's different. We've talked about this in the sermon. Memories are pliable. They are adjustable. They change. That's completely normal. So a kid's memory is going to be exactly the same way. Okay, how can we incorporate these things? This one's called rewind and remember. So imagine something happened. This is something very common with phobias. Phobias develop very quickly with a poor memory or a memory that's not practiced. It's not remembered. So a child was going to the park with his friend. He loves whittling. Him and his friend love to whittle on wood. So he took his pocket knife. He wasn't supposed to take the pocket knife. He took it secretly. He put it in his pocket. He hid it. He went. Him and his friend were doing it while his friend was using it and stabbed himself in the thigh. And blood everywhere. You can imagine they're like 10, 11. So you can imagine the trauma. They were able to go to the ER. The kid went away. He was able, from his perspective, he went in an ambulance. He had fun. He went in an ambulance. He went to the hospital. He got stitches. He went home. Everything's okay. But the kid, racked with guilt, already disobeyed dad for taking the pocket knife with him. Now his friend got injured, doesn't know how his friend is. So now started to develop this fear of, and you're not really processing what's going on. So now you have difficulty with whatever happens. Dad asks the kid, hey, you want to create the wooden car? We make a wooden car every single year. Okay, great. We make a wooden car. That's fine. Kid is deathly afraid of any blade. Doesn't want to get near it. Dad doesn't know. That was a long time ago. It shouldn't still bother you. Just forget it. Right? What is that? Kind of that dismiss and deny. Avoidance. We're trying to get rid of it. Instead, let him process it. Let him talk about it. Let it work through. Because then you have the ability as the parent to adjust how impactful that is. Ooh, that must have been scary. A lot of blood. There's people that faint actually when they see blood. I'm sure you were really brave with just being able to handle, and you guys did the right thing. You went and got the ER. Talk through it. Explain. Let them be able to talk about it. I had somebody I was talking with. I was interacting with them. I had just come to church or home somewhere, and their kid was at our house or at church. I forgot where it was. But they were asking me where I was, and I was like, I was at a funeral. And they asked, what's a funeral? They're young. They're like 6. What's a funeral? So I start talking about what a funeral is, which partially talks about what death is. And the dad heard like, oh, no, we don't talk about that in the family. like, okay, no problem. I'm respecting your wishes. But when you don't process things, you don't talk about it, there's no understanding that they'll get. They start to create these stories and they create this stuff that doesn't apply. Same thing here. If they don't have an opportunity to talk about that memory, bring it up, to process it, then it starts to create these really devastating ways of holding on to the child and what's going on in their lives. So rewind, remember, do it intentionally. It's okay to talk about things. Last one. We have close-ended questions. What's a close-ended question? Especially people in retail. Yes, no. Yeah, there's only 2 answers that you can give. Yes, no. What's another close-ended question with your kid, with school? How was your day? Good. Done. That's it. I'm out. Have a good day. How was your day? Bad. Done. I don't have to say anything else because you just set yourself up for that. Instead, allow your kid to remember. Make it a practice to remember. Sure, what did you do? The practice here is called remember to remember. Be intentional about memories. Memories are really effective to be able to process them, especially with somebody else. What was the best thing about today? You can't really say good for that, right? You can't say yes or good. What was the best thing? Oh, when I went on the swings. Swings were a lot of fun. We were pretending we were flying, blah, blah, blah. What was the not so best thing? What was the worst thing of today? I fell off the swings. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. I was crying. Were you okay? Yeah, I was okay. I have a Band-Aid. I mean, practice remembering. Remembering is a very effective tool, especially as parent, where you're not seeing your child for so long. That's one of the ways that you can be able to interact. The drive home is really funny with Yuffie. I always ask her those questions. Before, she would stay completely quiet. So that sometimes happens. Kids are like, oh, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to say anything. And then try to limit whatever that conversation is. But allowing there to be this process that, no, we can talk about things. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to remember. And it allows them to be able to process things in a little bit different way. Tell me about it. Walk me through your day at school. What did you do? How did you have fun? What did you handle? So, any questions? And then we went through a lot, kind of burned through it. Either work, yes. Ayo.
So the trauma develops and then the PTSD happens in adulthood, or they're two different things?
With PTSD is trauma first. There's some sort of trauma. And then there's a period of time that actually has to pass. There's different types of disorders that can develop based on how quickly something shows up. But PTSD is usually about after 3 months. There's some sort of physiological and emotional response that they're still having, losing sleep. They're feeling jumpy. They're having nightmares frequently. So yeah, there's a few different things like a bad mood. Yeah. So trauma is.
So when you say they talked about it during that
Yes.
they
Mhm.
have PTSD.
Yep. So trauma is a really interesting one you bring up. There's a certain camp that says, talk about it. You just talk about it. And there's value in that. There's actually therapy. Talk therapy does work with trauma. It does, absolutely. But then there's also, research has also shown, when you talk about it too much, there's a way to reoccur what just was happening and the feelings that they had, and the PTSD can almost set back in or just show up in the first place. So there's a really delicate balance. I was with a car accident patient, and he could not remember anything of the accident. Nothing. He just remembers what he was doing earlier on, and then he remembers waking up in the hospital even, not even the ambulance, waking up in the hospital. So part of that, where memory is affected, can be trauma related because the brain shuts out whatever was traumatic, and that's the way the brain handles it. The brain protects itself by not creating those connections. I'm not going to remember. So in that kind of situation, I can go in and be like, okay, tell me about your accident. Oh, I can't remember it. Great. Don't talk about it. It's fine. You're not practicing avoidance there. You're just teaching the person that, well, there's certain things that you can process and certain things you can't. So don't force it. So there's this balance. That's like a really obvious balance to be like, okay, yeah, we won't talk about that further. But somebody that has experience, I had another one who had a gunshot wound, very much remembers exactly what happened and exactly where the person was, the look on their face, the hand, the way the hand shape was very kind of creepy, the way they were describing so much detail with that certain thing. But for them, they remembered all those details and they were able to talk about it. And by the end of the week where they were released, it was a big difference for them to be able to put it into words. So you got both sides, unfortunately. That's more probably the answer that you were looking for. But yeah, trauma is an interesting one. Yeah. But for most things, especially for a child, where they just don't know. Trauma is different. Children are a lot more resilient than people think. They are going to be able to bounce back a lot faster. There's a lot of very traumatic things that children have gone through that they can be able to just work through it and be able to process it because they're young. So.
I have a question. I work with many parents who have like teenagers as well. Sometimes they're overeating because of emotional issues.
Right.
But the parent is trying to get therapy for their teen or child, but they're getting pushback. And so the parent is like, what do I do? How do I help my child? Because I know this, because of this emotional, they're causing them to overeat. So
Right.
How do you get a teenager or a child to be open to going to therapy?
The therapist needs to be good at what they do. You force a child to do it, and hopefully it sticks. That's what we've done. That
Parents should force their child
Yep.
to go.
as long as they're under 18, what we usually suggest is you take your child. Yeah, they're not going to want to go. We understand, and my job as a therapist is to get the kid to really enjoy what they're doing and recognize that therapy is a good place. The child can also talk it up. So sometimes we coach the parents of talking about, well, you can talk about anything you want. You don't have to talk about this. You can talk about whatever you want. Think about this from any perspective. And usually with any child, majority of therapists do play therapy. So sometimes we build that up. Some kids we're like, we'll go play. I play Monopoly with a bunch of my kids. We play every week. They look forward to that Monopoly game. So there's ways to be able to sweeten the deal that a therapist should be able to do, but a parent should exercise their ability as a parent to say, no, you're going to go to this one. But there are some times where it just doesn't work. And I've had one who after 2 months, it was all simple answers, did not do anything, did not open up at all. And I ended the therapy with them. I said, yeah, this is not, I don't want to leave therapy with a bad taste in your mouth because I know it's going to benefit you. So why don't we end things here? And when you feel ready for it, you can come to it. So there's a balance again, but yeah, parents should bring the kid. Trust that therapist.
Can I add?
Yeah.
I've worked with teens too, and similar experiences, similar supervisors told me.
Yeah.
I had one student didn't want to be there. We didn't talk about anything for like 3 weeks. He just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is painful.
Yeah.
Like, he'll talk. Eventually, he did.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that no matter what we did, he just didn't want to. And she said the same thing. She's like, if we go anymore, he's never going to come back.
Right.
So I think it's good. And could be a good therapist and the kid's not ready.
Yeah. Yep. It happens normally with any therapy that it just, there's not a match. I mean, I think there's a lot of good therapists out there and it just doesn't click. And that's okay. It's like, okay, you know what? This might not be working out. It's
also really bad therapists out there.
There are, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a different problem. But yeah, with kids, getting them in the room is the priority number one. I would say force them. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yeah.
I mean, listen, I know getting thrown into the fire is usually the best type of training. That's like,
For the most part, yeah.
But is there, I guess, if you're a newlywed or you're still, you're before that, but you want to start training yourself to be able to, I guess, be ready for having a kid and dealing with it the way that you said, how would you go, or is there a way that these books, or you would recommend training yourself in order to get to that stage where, I mean, so that you don't get there and you're, it's not a test run on your kid. It's more, you're already sort of prepared for the.
I would say use your kid as a test run. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Then the second one, okay, we'll get it right. It was the second one. Well, here's the thing too. Here's the other thing. The nuance with the brain, that the brain is very unique and the kids are very unique. So a lot of these techniques and stuff you're going to learn, it might not land. And so now all the stuff you studied, all the preparation you did, is like, well, it's not working. It's like, well, yeah, it doesn't always work. It's like every child is different. I can talk about, we're way over time. Like both kids, they experience discipline very differently. And we did it by trial and error. There's no other way to do it. I know lots of disciplinary techniques, but you got to just see one and see if it works or if it doesn't land. So, it's good. You can be prepared as much as you want, but you'll never be prepared as much as you want. It's just a matter of interacting with the kid and getting it and understanding it. And
kids are not academic. It's a relationship. So it's more about being with them and living with them rather than just applying some knowledge that you got. So, but it's good to have that mentality. Okay, thank you all for being here. Yeah, my pleasure. So be online. You can share it with people. I encourage you to share it. And if there's any parents out there that could benefit from this, let them know. And let's get it for people that can be helped. So, of course, my pleasure. Yes.
You know,